Hello guys and welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing my April wrap up. I'm super excited today because yesterday was my birthday and today I'm going out to celebrate with family. Yesterday I was celebrating with friends and then tomorrow I'm going to be on holiday. So I'm in a really good place at the moment because it's just like celebrations all day long and just relaxation. So yeah, I'm going to quickly run through the books that I read in April. I really thought I read a lot of books in April, but I just read two really chunky books, so it felt like I read a lot. So I only ended up reading 3 books in April, and then I started one and actually finished it in the beginning of May, but I'm going to include it in this video because I have thoughts about that book and I'm just not sure how I feel about it. The first book that I read this month was the 3rd story from the Elena Ferrante series, so this is Those Who Leave and Those Who Stay. I really enjoyed this book. If you've never heard of these series, or yeah, if you've just never heard of it, it's basically a series about friendship. These two women that grow up from childhood to then when they reach old age. And I feel like each book is really based on a different sort of topic. So I really feel like this one is really talking about marriage and how it sort of confines women and just allowing women to explore are you a mother, are you yourself, are you your career, which one are you? You feel a lot of the main character Elena, you feel a lot of her restrictions throughout this book. I really loved how this book built on their lives. So the first 2 books is more about them when they're young kids and when they grow up and they're in secondary school and things like that, and then when they go off to uni. I liked this book because I feel like in this book they were at a similar age to me, although they do grow up older in the book, but they're at a similar point in their careers to me, so for me I found it a little bit more relatable. For me, I found this book relatable because it was really focused on how the main character Elena goes about achieving her career success, but it's also the ups and downs. It really shows you how she manoeuvred her way through her career and then also manoeuvres her way through marriage life, and then that's when it starts to sort of focus on the confinements of marriage. Elena is becoming more successful in her career, and as she moves into her career field more, she talks a lot about politics but also a lot to do with feminism, and then I guess it slowly dawns on her that actually marriage is slowly imprisoning her, and then subsequently later when she becomes a mother she also feels that motherhood imprisons her as well. In this book, Elena's friendship with Lena is tested, so they are the 2 main characters, Elena and Lena. Elena is also called Lenu, but I just prefer to call her Elena. So yeah, throughout the whole book their friendship is tested, which I think is a fair amount of tests during friendship. I feel like that's what life throws at you when you're friends with someone for such a really long time. Now I'm going to be honest and say I really don't care for the character Lena. I feel for me, she feels a bit too deep. She feels a bit too much of the bad person, and I just kind of feel like she's portrayed as this really sort of bad, clever person. I'm if you're so clever, why can't you get yourself out of the situation you're in? I'm not trying to be really narrow-minded. I just feel like she's really portrayed as someone who's really sharp and witty and sneaky, but I feel like her life decisions, some of them totally not her fault, because some people are douches, but for me, her character doesn't do anything to me. I don't feel sorry for her. I just feel like she really bullies her friend. In a way, that also makes me dislike Elena, because I'm just I think this is someone you don't really need in your life. But then in a way, I see why Elena keeps around, because Elena doesn't stay in Naples. So this book is about 2 characters who grew up in Naples, but then Elena moved to Pisa, to Florence. So I see how their friendship, how they can still stay friends, because when you have that distance between you, actually you're not seeing that person all the time. And they actually don't talk that much all the time anyway. Sometimes they go through months or maybe years without speaking. So, and that's sometimes what happens in friendship. You can just pick up where you left off. So yeah, I hope I'm encompassing what everything of this book is about, as well as focusing on motherhood, marriage, being in relationships, how that tests you and things like that, and building your career. There's also a lot of talk about the 1960s and 1970s and what was happening in the Italian landscape and the political landscape there. I don't know much about that, so I'm not really going to touch on it, but it's a lot to do with communism, and there's a lot of violences on this book. A lot of their friends that they've grown up with died. Elena is married into a family that is a bit, it's better off than her family is, but it's just more I'd say they're middle class. So they sort of have ties to sort of political people, or they're quite academic. So she's also sort of thrown into that world, and she's come from a really lower class background. Overall, I feel like this book really focuses on what choice is for women, because Lena definitely didn't see her life, or she wouldn't choose to be working in the sausage factory, but in the end she realised if I've got to make ends meet for my family, this is what I need to do. It's not the life she would have chosen for herself, but also it's about Elena and the choices that she has as a woman. Elena goes on to have some affairs, which yeah, I mean, I'm not in agreement with it, but it's also when she's having these affairs that she's really exploring how caged she feels and why she's doing it. She feels like, have I actually explored enough of my life to now be married? The book ends with Elena meeting a childhood sweetheart that she's loved for a really long time, and then the last page in the book is literally her saying that she's leaving her family to be with him. And for me, I found that really disappointing. It just made me disappointed in Elena, because I don't agree with leaving your family for a man. Like, I know I've never been in that situation, but at least take your little girls with you. She ends up having 2 girls in this book, and I just sort of felt like, okay, I see you're unhappy, but don't do that to your family. So yeah, I gave this book a 5 out of 5 just because I thought it was so well done. It's a really good book on friendship and just normal life, and really delving into like all the little things that make our life so worthwhile. The next book I read was the 4th story in this series, and this is the final one. So this is called The Story of a Lost Child. If I'm honest, for me, this book fell flat for me. I gave it a 3 out of 5. I gave the previous book a 5 out of 5. I think I'm actually going to change this to a 4 out of 5. I think it's just really hard sometimes. Maybe I just found it really hard to come to the end of the series, and it didn't give me what I wanted. Actually, yeah, so no, I'm going to keep it as a 3. It didn't give me what I wanted, but I didn't think it was bad. It was a good ending. It was nice. I just feel like... So in the beginning of the book, you know that Lena disappears. You never hear and see from her again. They never find her. And for me, I just felt like, what? Like, where could this woman have possibly gone? And I just felt like too much of the book is about Lena and what's Lena doing and how amazing Lena is. And now Lena gets to disappear and like leave everyone behind, and everyone starts wondering about her. For me, I didn't like it. I was just like, I don't care about Lena that much. I think she's a really selfish character, and I just didn't feel anything towards her. The main sort of focus, I guess, for this book would be old age and like sort of the regrets that you get as you get older. So like I said, the last book ends with Elena leaving her marriage. She's fallen in love with Nino, and she's decided to leave her family for him. It's worth bearing in mind that Elena has loved this boy since childhood, but Lena also had a very serious relationship with Nino that only ended because of just like miscommunication, really. So this does make Elena and Lena's friendship strained. On Lena's part, I don't believe it's actually jealousy. I think she just knows who this guy is, because this guy is like a serial player, and she knows this is not going to work. It's really just as simple as, Elena, this guy's kind of using you and you're like not seeing it. You're so head over heels that you're allowing him to do this to you and like break up your family. So yeah, for me, why I found Elena disappointing was the fact that she left her family. And this book goes on to show like how her kids grow up, and everything seems to crumble for her kids. Like, she really does just like up and leave her children. Like, as they get older, like she'll just leave them with their dad and do whatever. And I'm just like, for me, I found that very, very selfish. I get that she's exploring her life and she's having a bit of regret. However, you've now decided to bring life into this world, so you need to take some responsibility. So for me, that's where I lost Elena. I just found her very irresponsible. And maybe that's okay, because throughout her whole life she has been very responsible. But I feel now like you're damaging your 2 kids because you feel like you love this guy who doesn't love you. A lot of things happen in this book. So, yeah, Elena leaves her marriage. And the book spans over many, many years. So she leaves her marriage, she comes back and forth, her and Nino are no longer together, and she gets pregnant by Nino. Whilst at the same time, Lena gets pregnant by Enzo, a man that she was living with for a very long time. They weren't in any sort of sexual relationship, and then one day it just sort of happened. So they're pregnant together at the same time. Lena gives birth to a girl, and... Oh yeah, Lena gives birth to a girl, and so does Elena. The reason I got confused is because Lena was predicted to have a boy, but she ended up having a girl. But also Elena's mum gets diagnosed with cancer. The relationship between Elena and her mother is, like, I say shocking, but felt very real. Her and her mum don't like each other, but then when her mum falls ill, it's like she gets the mum she always wanted. And her mum is very interesting. I really liked the way her mum was portrayed, and just how, I don't know, how lovely she became at the end and how like real she became at the end. I feel like in the end Elena got what she wanted, because her mum treated her like crap for so many years. Like, when she leaves her husband, her mum actually comes and physically assaults her, and even her husband was like, I'm so sorry I called her, like no one deserves that. So her mum is a pretty horrific character, but in the end they sort of like meet in the middle, and then yeah, her mum does end up passing away, but it's like they've resolved their issues and she kind of like understands her mum a little bit more. In this story, like, Elena does do a lot of travel. This is one thing I'm like, go girl, go do you, but at the same time she's doing a lot of travel, and like, yeah, her career is blossoming, but at the detriment of her children's development. Like, they're moving from house to house, like they don't know like what's going on with their parents. It's all a big huge mess, and that's just one thing I didn't like. I mean, I liked about the book, but just one thing I didn't like about the consequences of what Elena did and what it done to her family. She actually ends up being very civil in the end with her husband. Her husband ends up moving to the States and her daughters end up moving to the States, but not before a lot of things have happened. Like, for instance, her oldest daughter, Elena's oldest daughter, falls in love with Lena's son. However, one day she comes back and her middle child has run away with Lena's son. I can't remember what his name is now, but anyway. And they've run off to her grandparents. So essentially what has happened is one sister has dropped over another for a guy. And I'm just like, this is not normal. Like, you have broken down your family so badly that they think it's okay to do this to each other. And this guy is creeping around with 2 of your kids. Like, what the hell? One of them I think is only like 16 and the other one's like 14. Her kids, you know, I say develop issues, teenagers do, but I feel like they really did feel the effect of their broken home that they came from, and the fact that their mother, sure, I wouldn't say she's unstable, but she just didn't give them a solid foundation, and I feel like she should have been able to do that for her children. So I'm just going to leave it there with this book. It was really nice, I think, to read this series. I really enjoyed it, and it's made me want to go to Naples. I'm actually going to Rome, and I'm going like near Siena, I'm going like to Tuscany. I really wish, like, I was reading this book and I'd already booked Rome, and I was just like, I really wish we'd like gone to Naples. I really liked Elena. I mean, sometimes I wish she would have grown a spine, but we can't all be tough and hard at all times, and at the end of the day, I wouldn't say she did the best she could. I don't feel like she did the best she could, but she did okay. So yeah, like I said, I gave this book a 3 out of 5, and yeah, I really recommend this series. Like, I would recommend it to anyone. It's not going to blow your mind, I don't think, but it's a really like intriguing read, and it really pulls you along. You really feel like you've got to know the characters. There's a lot of character development in this, and it's just brilliant. The next book I read was Circe, and I read this on my Kindle. I have very mixed thoughts about Circe. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars, and because for me it was just okay. It wasn't a Song of Achilles. Oh, I don't know how to explain this book. The final book that I picked up in April was Homefire by Kamila Shamsie, and this is also a myth retelling of the book Antigone. I've never read Antigone before. I didn't even know it was a myth retelling. It was only like a month ago when I saw like it was in the roundup of top 10 myth retellings. For me, I felt like it's always been like promoted as a book about like Islam. So I was really surprised to find out that it was a myth retelling. I'm really unsure as to how I feel about this book. I feel like I do love it. I feel like I finished it at the beginning of May, so maybe the 1st or the 2nd of May. That's why I'm just bunging it in with April, and I just keep thinking about it. Like, literally when it finished, you know, on the Kindle obviously it has the percentages at the bottom. I obviously hadn't been paying too much attention to that, so when it came to the end I was just like, what? The story starts off with Isma, one of the sisters, like being heavily interrogated at like Heathrow Airport because she's going to America. She's a Muslim. She gets let in, and that's fine. She ends up meeting this guy in America who actually turns out to be the son of the Home Secretary back in London. Isma has 2 siblings, Anika and Paraviz. I'm sure I'm not saying his name correctly. And she's now gone to study in America because ever since the death of her mum, she's really taken the time to look after her siblings, but now she feels like this is her time to like go and actually do something with her life, which is great. I felt like Isma's story was really just a side story. It was just like literally the setting for the next bit in the chapter, which I found personally quite interesting, because if you read the back, a lot of it sounds like it's going to be based around Isma, but it's really not. The book is split into different sections where it focuses on each character. Isma has a package that she's been meaning to send to London, and Eamon offers to send it back to her, and that's sort of where the majority of the story then starts, because it then begins to form into a love story essentially. Eamon goes to the house, meets Anika. He's already seen a picture of Anika, and at this point Isma and Anika aren't talking because Anika has a twin brother, Paraviz, who basically has gone down the jihadist route. But she finds out from a family member that it was Isma that dogged him in, basically, and she stops talking to her sister. She's just like, how could you have done that? No way, I'm just a bit like, I understand, but at the same time, like, cooperating probably makes life a little bit easier for her, which is what Anika told her sister. So Eamon goes to the house. Anika knows who he is and it's just a bit like, oh dude, what are you doing at the house? And ends up forming a relationship with him. You're not sure if the relationship she has with him is genuine. Like, he's genuinely like falling in love with her. It ends up like you then going to see how her brother ended up down the route of jihadism, but actually you find out her brother wants to come back to the UK. Like, this isn't what he signed up for basically. He ended up getting really groomed into it and then couldn't really find a way out. Anika is trying to help her brother and like they're talking on Skype and things like that, and they formulated a plan, but the plan goes to shit basically because for some reason her brother ends up approaching like the British consulate, I think it is, in Pakistan where he is, and he ends up getting gunned down, I think because the people he was with realised what he was trying to do. And the rest of the story really becomes this sort of emotional play in a way where the family are like begging for his family back so that he can be buried in the UK, whereas the Home Secretary is like, no way is that happening, like that guy is a terrorist and Pakistan can do whatever they want with his body. And it's at this point that his son reveals to him, well, I'm actually dating his sister, and that's when his dad is like, no way, like this girl's manipulated you. And that's when it all goes to the press and about things like that. The girls are just like, okay fine, if you're not going to bring our brothers back, we're going to go and get our brother. So Anika goes over there, and then it ends up becoming this, like, I guess in a way performance piece, because it's like she's taken his body and she's in a park, and I think she's dressed in really like floaty ways, and like, so she's in a really public park and things like that, and like I think she just is staying out there like days and nights whilst her brother's like decaying corpse is behind her. The thing is, I was reading it and finding it very far-fetched, but it's obviously based upon the myth, so that's obviously how the myth goes. The last bit is, to me, I'm going to say this and you're going to be like, what? For me, it blew me away. And that's really no pun intended, because what ends up happening in the end is Eamon ends up flying out to meet Anika, and his dad sees him on the TV. He goes to her, and it's so random. These two guys come to him and they're like, oh yeah, like we've been expecting you, and basically strap him up, I guess, with a suicide vest. I didn't know what to think, and then, well, you know what happens. Anika comes towards him and he's like, no, like stay away, but she's like, I don't care, ends up embracing him, and then obviously what the last image you have in your head is two lovers embracing and them dying because they probably would have exploded. I just don't know how I feel about it. I guess maybe if I had read Antigone, maybe I would have been expecting that or not. I don't know how I feel about it. But it stayed with me, and that's why I feel like I gave it a 3 out of 5, but I feel like I might be bumping it up to a 4 out of 5. I just found the book spectacular. I think, yeah, for ages I was sitting on it thinking, I don't know how I feel about this, but I think I know that I thought the book was spectacular. So yeah, and I'm now really interested in going down the road of myth retellings. Anyway, that actually concludes the books that I've read in April. So yeah, that ended up being 4 books. I'm sorry my descriptions of Circe was so bad. I just realised that it was actually very complicated and that I didn't know a lot of the names. So I didn't want to just keep being like, I think it's this person, I think it's this person. But yeah, I think Circe is a book that I'm going to have to do a full review on, as well as doing a review on the Song of Achilles, because then I can go more into depth about what I liked and what I didn't like. So that is the end of my video. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. But yes, that is it. I will see you in my next video. In the meantime, you can always find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm always tweeting. I probably will be tweeting, but I will also be doing loads of holiday posts on my Instagram, like loads of Instagram stories, so you can follow me there. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!